So my name is Jackson Howell, and I run a company called Riselabs Limited. We're a software and app development company based in Peterborough, and we've been running since 2016. And we've grown into a small business that's been growing year on year, developing apps for lots of people up and down the country, and now some international apps and services as well.
What sector is your company based in?
We're quite broad, really, because we can operate pretty much within any sector, but we tend to work a lot within sort of the business to business type software areas. We rarely work on business to consumer areas, but we can pretty much work within anything. We've worked on medical platforms, we've worked on industry and fiber optics, networking platforms and things like that. So we've done bits of everything, really.
Tell us what your company does.
On a day-to-day basis, we pretty much just write a lot of documentation, build a lot of specifications, and then take those specifications, give them to a UI designer and a developer to review, and then build them into full-scale projects. Those projects usually involve building out apps and platforms for businesses that are trying to either build their own product or solve a problem that they've already got within their business. And they'll use that app then to either speed up their process internally, so their paperwork they'll get rid of, or they'll be able to send out jobs faster to their employees, or they'll be able to manage people better. And then we build the app side of that, which might be the actual people in the field using those applications to get instructions from their company, get files, get documents, get whatever they need. And that's what we do basically on a daily basis.
Does it supply to regional, national, or a global market?
We supply to mostly national at the moment. We are trying to break out into an international market and get more people further afield. Because our team is international, we've got developers and designers all over the country, all over the world. We are trying to reach out and find more business in different markets with completely different cultures and completely different mindsets.
How many people work within the company?
We're a mix. So because we hire contractors quite often for projects based on skill requirements. So if we're starting a new project and it's particularly strange or difficult or unique, which a lot of our work is, we'll tend to find somebody, a contractor or similar, who has that particular skill. So we currently employ 2 people, growing to hopefully 4 this year. And then we have fluctuates between 10 and 14 of us in total at any one point.
What makes your company stand out to your customers or clients?
We tend to take on some really unique and quirky projects. We're quite a vibrant team, and I think that's probably the one thing that a lot of people seem to like us the most. Is because we're kind of energetic and we get really invested in the ideas. We don't really treat like a sort of agency mentality, which is, oh, you're just another project, you're just another number. We'll take your work, we'll do your work, and here you go. Best of luck, off you go. We're very invested. We like to get really involved with what we do, which was why we tend to take on work that is particularly interesting. A good example, I've got a meeting that's with an app that's really quite different to our normal sort of remit of work. And they are talking to other agencies, and we're probably going to turn out to be more expensive than some of the other, cheaper agencies that can just build apps quite quickly. But they're really keen on working with us because they really like our approach, the fact that we're really energetic, we're really interested, we're really engaged, we start coming up with ideas already. And they just feel like they can work with us because we get it. And I think that's probably the big difference between us and a lot of other people. We're involved, we're very invested, and we get it.
Does your business have multiple office locations?
Physically, no, but theoretically, yes. Everybody in the company works fully remote, which does kind of give us a kind of pseudo offices in different places. So we maintain our main sort of HQ, as it were, in Peterborough and the Alia Future Business Centre, which is next to the Posh Ground. We have a second address that we use in London, which is the other Alia building, which is in London. And then we also mention on our website that we've got a sort of a Ukraine office as well, because 3 of our team members are out in Ukraine. So we are kind of international, but it's virtually international as opposed to physically international.
What recent environmental changes has your company made or plans to make?
One of the biggest ones I think we made was getting rid of an office and going fully remote, because like spending money on an office, people driving and commuting to an office, we used to have physically an office in the Alia building, and as great as it was, we had to heat it, we had to power it, we had to then get everyone to drive there, and everyone was commuting there on a daily basis. They were using fuel and so on and so forth. And when we went fully remote a couple of years ago, that meant that now nobody is commuting. They just can work from home. We can still get together every now and then, but we do everything virtually as well. I'm going to say the pandemic has kind of helped in one way, which is it's encouraged a lot of our clients to go virtual meetings, which we've been trying to do for ages, because personally, driving to a meeting just feels like such a waste of time and money and fuel. It's just such a waste. So trying to get clients to go online has been quite tricky. Then the pandemic happened and everyone went, oh, we'll definitely be online now. I was like, brilliant, that works for us, because now it's kind of sowed a good sort of eco mindset that everyone now will stay working online. And that's been, pretty much all of our meetings now are online.
What do you do?
Yeah, I pretty much do everything. But within the business, I used to do a lot of the design work. I used to do some of the development work. I write a lot of the documentation specification. I do a lot less of that now, because now I've got people who do that for me. And basically, as I try to grow the business, I've tried to delegate bits that I used to do off to other people. So most of my day now is spent, I write documentation. I do team meetings to get people together, get ideas generated. I also handle most of the sales as well. So I'm probably first point of call for a lot of people who are looking for a new app or a new platform. They'll get in touch, put an inquiry through, and I'll be the first person to contact them. I am looking for someone to fill that seat as well, because it takes a lot of time actually doing sales, doing meetings, things like that. And I'd quite like someone else to do that for a bit as well, which would help me. So I can then start carry on doing the better stuff, which is growing the business, which is planning out what we're going to do in a month, what we're going to do in 6 months, what we're going to do in a year, looking for grants for things that we want to build, looking at our own technology, our own services and platforms and things. That's where I want to be. But mostly at the moment, it's document writing, planning, and getting people together, really.
How long have you been doing it for?
Been in Riselabs since it was co-founded in 2016, and my co-founder left in 2018, I think. So we've been going now for, we're nearing 5 years. And then before that, I freelanced for a year on my own and did my own thing and sort of built a sort of small portfolio. And then before that, I was full-time employed in a local company as a creative director, which I pretty much joined when I was 19. So I'd been there for quite a long time, all the way from a junior developer or junior web developer, all the way through to creative director. Eventually decided to leave to go and do my own thing. And that's where I've ended up now. So probably all in all, about 14 years in this industry.
How did you get involved in it?
I suppose you could say I'm a bit nerdy. I've always been interested in technology. I've always been interested in digital tech and physical technology as well. So ever since sort of school age, I was the kid that the teachers would ask to help with the computers and things like that. If something went wrong, they'd be like, "Hey, Jackson, can you help with, can you get this computer working?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." When I was just a little kid, and I was really interested in technology. I like to take things apart. I used to like creating artwork and things in various different bits of software I could get my hands on. And then through college, I kind of didn't really have much of a direction. I knew I was interested in computers, but that led me down the path of going down the sort of programming route and doing things with like binary programming and assembly and all kinds of things, which was just too techy for me. And I didn't really know how to go from there. I didn't really know what to do. So I changed track. I started doing an art and design diploma instead. And then through that, I actually met a photographer who extended part of the course was to do photography, but he also taught Photoshop. Then I started getting interested in Photoshop, and I started learning how to create designs and create graphics and images and all sorts of different sort of, I guess, design related stuff digitally. And it just blew up from there. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to create stuff like websites, or I want to create graphics, branding, whatever. I was just creative digitally. And then from there, I decided to look for employment and start an actual career path.
What kind of projects are you working on right now?
Quite a mix. One of our biggest ones that we've worked on over the last year is a learning platform. I say it's a learning platform. It's more a training management platform. So it's more industry based rather than sort of student and school or university based. It's designed for corporations and big companies to track who's trained in what department they're in, what skills they have, what qualifications they have, and so on and so forth, and when they expire and things like that. So that's one of the biggest projects we're working on at the moment. That's sort of, it's very tail end now and about to go live, which has been quite a big project. It's taken us basically a year, I think. It's involved about 10 people. It's been quite a big project. What else are we working on? We're working on one of my own ideas, actually, that I had a couple of years ago that I wanted to build. And I'm using my own company resources now to build this project called the OK button, which is it's a mental health app to help people check in with their loved ones and friends, whether they're doing great or not doing so great, but to just keep in touch. It's sort of like a very base level of communication. So that's one really big, exciting project that I'm working on at the moment. I'm quite excited about sort of self-investing in. And then we're just working on a lot of other bits and pieces, a few platforms, a few websites, and smaller projects. So we tend to have quite a big variety. Like we have quite a lot of little projects that keep us quite well entertained. And then we have a couple of really big projects which take on a lot of mental resources, a lot of headspace, and a lot of team power to build.
What are your favourite parts of the job?
Well, my favourite part of being an entrepreneur, so my job specifically, being able to run a company, is the fact that I've basically got full freedom to do whatever I want. If I want the company to go in a certain direction, I can kind of steer it that way, and we can start doing those kind of things. I think a lot of it is freedom. Running your own business affords you the luxury of being able to go, hey, do you know what, 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to go down to the pub with some friends. Or actually, I'm going to go and meet some new business potentially over in a different part of the country, or even a different country entirely, to go and network and meet new people and potentially sell to other people. It grants a lot of freedom. But on a daily basis, I think the thing I enjoy the most is coming up with ideas. I'm kind of creative, but now because I've got people to design and develop things for me, I'm not having to do necessarily the code and the design work, but I get still to be very creative. I get to write up ideas. I get to come up with concepts. I get to come up with plans and sort of what we call battle strategies to be able to go from sort of nothing as an idea through to something that's really, really good for people to download and use. So that's probably on my daily basis, probably the thing I enjoy the most.
What do you think are the skills needed for your job?
For my job specifically, you have to be very creative minded. Be able to look at a problem or look at a situation and think of every single perspective and every single angle around that problem, and then come up with a solution for it. So you have to be very critical thinking is an absolute key, because sometimes you might work on things, or you might work with clients who are very set in their way of doing stuff and they've got an idea and a direction, and it might not work. So you've got to be able to appraise everything and be able to come up with the right solution and the right problem, the right solution to said problem. For this kind of industry, I mean, being creative in any shape or form, whether you write code, whether you design things, whether you want to make stuff, whatever, being creative of some kind is definitely an advantage and something that you need. You need to be of a creative mindset. But there really isn't so little bars to entry. I mean, you can start almost anywhere. If you can learn code online, you can learn design online, you can pick it up so easily. And it's surprising, you only have to learn how to build a WordPress website, and other people who don't know how to do that kind of thing will pay you for that service. It's amazing how quickly you can pick up some really basic skills and start in this industry.
How do you network?
Traditionally, we'll say, sort of pre-pandemic, I would typically maybe go along to business network events, usually the free ones or the open ones that were sort of like open socials for people to get along, and just chatting to people. A lot of people's ears tend to prick up when you go, oh yeah, I build apps, or I'm anything with technology. People go, oh, that's interesting. Like, then they want to know more about what do you do, what kind of apps, what kind of industry. And technology tends to interest people, especially those who are running their own businesses, who on a daily basis probably deal with a lot of crap systems and things that don't work. And they like chatting to people who might be able to suggest something. And that's a lot of the conversations. So a lot of my networking conversations have started with somebody going, "Oh, I've got a problem with this thing," and I'll go, "Oh, have you tried, using this piece of software or this platform or system or website?" And then they go, "Oh, that's really great. Oh, I'm going to keep in touch with you because I might be able to ask some questions in the future." And that usually materializes onto them going in the future, going, "Look, we've got this thing that we want to build, and it's been a bit of a problem. We don't know how to build it. Can we have a chat and start up a bit of a conversation?" And a lot of our business actually through Riselabs comes from people who have referred to us. They know that we're the experts. They know that we can answer those technical questions. Networking now is different. I've been going to a lot of online events. I did have a big dip where I just didn't, because during the first sort of lockdowns, it was a bit like, don't know if I can really have got the energy for this. Started picking up a little bit more now, and I've noticed by sort of getting involved in events, I've had people email me after going, "Oh, you're that tech guy," or "You're the app guy," or something like that, and then asking a question. And that usually gives me an opportunity to network with people.
What changes have you seen in your sector in the last 5 years?
Big adoption of technology. I mean, it's been growing for a long time. We kind of went through, or going through, a sort of technology revolution where a lot of businesses, companies are moving away from their old systems, moving away from their old setups, and embracing things like, cloud systems, online document storage, all kinds of services, and what are named software as a service. So rather than the industry buying things in, like buying packages of software to do certain things, especially probably in the finance industry where a lot of stuff used to be packaged, and it was a packaged piece of software and you installed it and then everyone had a license for it. Everything is now moving to completely online systems. So you don't install anything. So everyone can access everything in the business, no matter what device they're on, no matter what system they're using. It doesn't matter because it's all web-based. It's all on a platform and they can access it from anywhere. So that's been a big change. And I'm noticing that's increasing more and more. I'm also seeing a lot of smaller businesses and industries that you wouldn't expect necessarily to embrace technology or require it. Take, for example, a project that I am hoping to start very soon is for a murder mystery company. Traditionally, they're very hands-on. Everything's paper-based and it's all theatrical and very physical. 5 years is a long stretch, because we suddenly went, technology was growing and growing and growing, and then pandemic hit, and then technology went through the roof because everyone went, "Oh, we need to do everything online," including all of our customer relationship stuff, all of our day-to-day business, all of our, everything had to suddenly go online. And so even companies like this, who are traditionally very, very sort of almost non-technology, have gone, "We need to move everything on to a technical platform of some shape or form, so we can make sure that we're COVID safe, so we can make sure that we're ticking all the government guidelines, we're making sure that people aren't handling too much stuff." There's been a big shift, and I think out of the last even couple of years, it was already increasing over the last 5 years, people embracing technology, but over the last couple of years, and the year especially 2020, the use of technology has gone up tons, absolute tons.
What are the developing opportunities for your sector?
It's quite a broad amount of stuff which comes our way, but probably similar to what I was saying in the last question, there's a lot of companies that aren't necessarily traditional, very technology focused, who are now moving towards using technology, whether it's using an app for patient appointments and things like that, rather than it being phone based or email based. So in the medical industry, that's becoming increasingly more apparent. In our other industries, they're trying to get rid of paper. So from an eco side of things as well, a lot of businesses we work with are just trying to get rid of their old processes where things were written down or stuffed into file cabinets and things like that. And that's been an increase over the last few years, where we've seen this sort of removal of physical processes within the company to digitize them entirely. And we help them completely digitize the process where the entire thing could be done on an iPad or a phone or anything without them having to physically write anything at all. So there was no paperwork, there was no printing, there was no, a lot of stuff was completely illegible as well. And it removes a lot of that process. So that's a big change. A lot of people getting rid of old processes and paper.
What are the developing pressures for your sector?
I think there's a lot of consumer pressure now, an expectation from consumers that businesses should have a website should have a platform, should have an app, should have social media, should be available on Facebook, should be contactable constantly. There is a lot of pressure, not necessarily on us in our business, because that's good pressure. It's good for us to see other businesses needing to digitize up and embrace technology. But certainly the expectation from consumers that you are digital. It doesn't matter what kind of industry you work in. There's a lot of consumer pressure that you are digital in some shape or form. It doesn't matter. Even if you're a campsite in the middle of nowhere, people want to book online. People they don't want to have to phone someone and speak to an answer phone or not get through to anybody or send an email and wait 3 days for it to respond. People want stuff instantly. And that's probably a big pressure, is that instant gratification. People want everything now. And for us, the challenge there is that we have to build apps and platforms and services where the user experience, I mean, it was always the most important thing anyway, but now we have to increase the speed of everything. People want stuff now. They don't want to wait for an email. They don't want to wait for a notification. They want to do whatever they need to do in the 5-minute window they've got in their day to get it done. And anything tech, apps, whatever gets in the way of that, it slows it down and it causes a problem.
What organisations or professional bodies represent your company?
That's probably going to be a difficult one to answer, because mostly our industry is pretty much unregulated. We don't really have any specific guidelines. I mean, anybody, almost literally anybody, even yourself, you could go online, download a copy of WordPress, host it somewhere and start running a website. There is almost no bar to entry. You can start anywhere. Unlike an accountant needs to be accredited, and unlike other industries which need qualifications. To be honest, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. So the good side is almost anybody can start in our industry. If you want to go and learn technology and you want to learn how to build websites, build apps, design, code, whatever, you can go and do it. And then you can go and get paid for it almost immediately. Within a few weeks of learning this stuff, someone will pay you for that expertise. And you don't need any qualifications and you don't need any accreditations. The bad side is, of course, that means that our industry is extremely saturated with people who are taking advantage of that, who are not very good, who are charging extortionate prices for very poor work. And we see it all the time. We see a lot of platform systems, websites, apps, all sorts of things which are really poor quality. And that's because there is no, or very little need for qualifications, and there's very little, there's no accreditations to make sure people aren't doing bad work. So it's a good and a bad thing. I would say it's an accreditation, but the one part of our industry which does limit us and keep a sort of a quality check is that especially with the app store, so the iOS app store, Apple app store, Apple won't accept apps unless they hit a lot of entry criteria. So they must have certain things they must check off. They must be secure. They must be privacy conscious. They must actually do what they say the app does. They must be free of viruses, must be free of malware and that kind of thing. So that does keep the App Store relatively well curated. And the Google Store is okay. It's not as good, but they're still trying to curate apps and things. So that does help keep our industry at a certain level when it comes to apps.
What skills does your company or department most value in your employees, and why?
I think the thing that our company most values above all is problem-solving skills. So when we interview people, we tend to try and give them problems to solve and see how they approach a situation, because not everything in our industry, or actually almost nothing in our industry, is binary. There isn't an exact way of solving a problem. There isn't an exact way of doing things in our industry. It's very open. There are lots of different ways of approaching things. Main skill that covers everything is problem solving. And then underneath that, then we look for talent, so natural talent. So if you're if we're employing a designer, for example, or a UI designer, we look for the fact that they're up to date on the latest trends. They're really good with the user experience. They understand how people think. Psychology, I think, is important in our industry as well. Not necessarily from a qualification point of view, but if you're empathetic to the way people think and work and behave, then I think that will give you an absolute advantage in any kind of creative tech industry, because at the end of the day, you are building stuff for people, for humans. And if you can understand how the human mind works, what the human expects to happen, what they want from a product, what they want from a service, and so on and so forth, then you can then engineer around that. So whether how you design, how you build, how you write code, whatever you do around that, it all centers around that person. So that problem solving, being empathetic to the way people think, and thinking about psychology, I think are real core skills. And then everything else from that is pretty much supplementary. So if you're really, if you're a fast coder, great. If you're, IT savvy, if you understand technology, brilliant. If you're a little bit nerdy and you like, technology, you like hardware, you like new phones, new laptops, whatever, that also helps as well. But you don't have to be, there isn't a specific skill set, and it isn't a checkbox process that we go through, especially for interviews. We just look for people that just get it, who are invested, who are interested, engaged, and excited as well. Like energy. Energy is good.
What are your company's or department's top 3 interview questions, and what are you looking for in an answer?
We don't have an interview template, so we don't really have a specific, every time we have an interview, it must be these kind of things. It does vary depending on the role we're looking for. Typically, we hire up a lot for developers, so app developers, coders, website developers, Laravel developers, PHP developers, that kind of thing. We look for UI designers, so people who are user interface designers, so people who are creative, who can create graphics, can create website designs, platform designs, app designs, that kind of thing. And then we also look for project managers, people who understand how to keep everything running smooth. And typically, between the groups of them, the questions we usually always ask are always around problem solving. So we'll pitch them a current project that we're working on. So we'll say, we're doing this at the moment, we're working on this project, and then we'll pick something from that project that we're finding particularly difficult. So we'll take an element. So if it's a UI designer, we'll say, well, this company really like, this design or this other product, and their users want to do this. What do you think would work? And we don't necessarily think that this person will get the answer straight away, and there may not be an answer for it, but we like to see their process. And that's the thing. We don't expect right answers to questions. What we expect is someone to really sit back and think of it. I think anybody who answers a question really quickly puts us a little bit on guard. We think, oh, have you really thought about this problem? And a really good example is this. I was interviewing another company recently who I wanted to work with to build an app. And I was in a one-to-one conversation, and he had a developer he was chatting to at the same time. And I put across the specification for the app, and I said, look, we estimate an amount of time for building this product, but we're looking at taking out these elements to try and reduce it down. Now, straight away, they had assumed that what we'd said is the time that was required for the project. They went, yeah, that's fine. We can do that project within that time. And I went, well, actually, I want to take out all these features, and I want to cut that time in half. And they went, yeah, that's fine. We can cut it in half. And I instantly was put off by that developer, because I went, you haven't really thought about this. Now, I've just gone and said, well, I'm going to take these features out, and you're assuming that these are worth half the time. I like people who will stop and think. I like people who don't have the right answer, who will go, don't know the answer to that, I need some time to think about it, or have a conversation with us. So our interview process tends to be quite conversational. We like to get to know people. We want to know how they think. We want to make sure they fit with our Riselabs mindset, that they get how we work, don't necessarily always have the right answer to questions. It's very relaxed, you say.
What other roles does your company employ?
At the moment, we employ a lot of designers, a lot of creative people, and it really varies. So we've got people creating apps, we've got people creating platforms, we've got people creating websites and smaller projects. We've got developers, and the developer skill set, again, is quite broad. We've got Swift developers for iOS. We've got hybrid developers using things like languages like Ionic and Flutter. We've got platform developers who are using PHP and Laravel as our main framework that we use all the time. And then we have supplementary other roles as well that kind of keep everything tied together. So we've got project management roles. We've got a project manager at the moment, beside myself, who often gets involved with project management. And this was something that I delegated out to somebody else. Alina, my project manager, she makes sure that all the way through the client's expectations, that she's working with every department and every person to keep everything tied together and working, so that the vision that the client expected is what comes out the other end once we've done all of our work in the middle. We also have people that look after our admin work as well, and finance. We currently, I handle a lot of the finance personally, but something in the future, I would like someone else to handle the financial projections, the forecasting, the creating invoices, tracking down payments from clients, and all this kind of thing. So there is a lot of roles potentially. We're a small company. We're only small at the moment, and a lot of those roles tend to be combined into a role at the moment, and someone is picking up pretty much all of that stuff. But as we grow, we'll start to fragment that out into lots of little roles that people can pick up and help us with.
What advice do you have for someone who's wanting to work in your sector?
I think my main advice for somebody who wants to get into the sector is go and do it now. Go and start learning code in the evening, start learning design, read stuff, pick up everything. It's so accessible. There are so many different entry points to our industry. You can learn it yourself and get in. You can go and get a master's degree in something and join us. There is so many entry points, and we've got one of our team members who looks after our websites and clients and writes blog posts. He's got a master's in creative writing, so he creates a lot of content for us and helps us build up our good sort of language and articles and things. But then people like myself who are running the business are relatively unqualified to a certain extent. I've learned everything by learning it, by doing it in the real world. I didn't go to university personally. I left college early and I started learning on my own. So I'm of the go and do it, learn on my own. And then other people we employed have come out of university. Other people have come from other jobs. They've taken completely different career paths and then learned on their own. There are so many entry points. So the best advice is, if you're interested in it, you can pop open a web browser, go and find any tutorial and start learning almost immediately. There are so many services out there. The ones that are paid that will help you track, and they've got professional resources. And there are tons and tons of free resources everywhere. So you can learn immediately. There's no limits.
All right, thank you very much.